Whether you've been on interchange and had a 3-stripe man come sliding around the corner on his knees and absolutely flattening you with an RPK, or simply you may be curious about one of the best 545 guns at Escape from Tarkov, today we're going to be talking about the RPK-16 and also some budget recommendations on how to tame this monster. Not only is it one of the best bang for buck 545 guns, but it can be an absolute laser beam when built correctly. So today let's find out how to build this awesome gun and how to tame that recoil. Before we get in the video here today, I do want to remind you I stream on Twitch. The link for that will be featured down in the description below if you want to see me running this gun live or have any questions about any of the videos you may have watched recently. Look, I don't know if I can read your mind, but you might actually be asking, why would you ever want to run an RPK over something like an AK-74 or an AK-74N? On my right hand side, I've built a best in slot AK-74N, the lowest recoil possible. And what you are going to be noticing is even though this thing is probably about 100,000 more rubles, it is actually worse in both recoil and also ergo than a properly built RPK-16, which is actually quite nuts. Now, if you want to get your hands on the RPK, you could kill Killer on interchange, or you could simply buy it from Prapor level max. But the truth is, he sells it for about 68,000 rubles, which isn't really that good. Now, if you go to level 3, you can actually trade for it, but the trade for it totals something like almost 88,000 plus rubles, so it's actually also not a good deal. So let's jump into the flea market, and you can find that the RPK is quite reasonable. And also, if you keep a good eye out, you can sometimes find some people selling it with the 20-inch extended barrel, which can be a pretty good deal as you can get down that recoil without paying too much. So let's talk budget RPK. And the truth is, this gun is actually phenomenal on its own. But let's jump straight into compensators, and we can see the Zenit DTK1, but we are actually going to be going for the SRVV 545 compensator, as it's 1% recoil better than the DTK1. However, it's purchased from mechanic level 3, so if you can't buy that from mechanic, then go for the DTK1. As for grips, we're going to be looking at the UVG Tactical. However, the UVG Tactical is actually the same as the Zenit RK5 in both statistics, whether it's ergo or recoil. So whatever one you can purchase at the time for the best price would be your best option here. You could also go for the Magpul RVG Grip Black or the FDE, as it has better ergo, but we're going to be settling for the UVG Tactical as it's a really nice value grip. We're not going to be changing the stock or the pistol grip, however, but you can actually go for something like the MFT bus stock here, lose a bit of ergonomics, but actually gain a significant recoil reduction. So that's obviously up to you. It's quite expensive if you buy it off the flea market. As for scopes, you should probably look for some of the hollow scopes. I would actually recommend the Valde 1P87, as this scope actually has a nice hide over bore, which means that muzzle flash isn't so terrible. You can actually get this scope for a really good price when you actually remove owner type traders from the top here, and some people on the flea market sell it for about half the value of the scope itself, making it a really good option. Now you can see what I'm talking about with this SRVV here, so if that is the case and you can't buy it, maybe consider the Zenit DTK1 as it is incredibly cheap. So let's jump straight into mid tier here, and this is for the people with a little bit of money. Now this is really where the RPK thrives. We're going to be jumping straight into the PWS CQB compensator. Now this thing can be purchased from Skier Max. Unfortunately, if you don't have Skier, this thing can be quite expensive. So I would recommend going for one of the other compensators like I talked about, the SRVV. We are going to be using the Magpul RVG grip simply because it has a slightly better ergo than the RK5, but this one isn't 100% necessary. Now for pistol grips, you don't have to change this if you don't want to, but sometimes that boost in ergo is quite nice. Now you could obviously go for something like the Zenit RK3, which is the best grip in the game right now, or you could go for something like the Tapco Saw, which is just slightly worse and actually significantly cheaper and purchasable from Peacekeeper level 2. Alright, as for stocks, this is actually really important. If you do want to cut back that recoil, we are going to be going for the E mod. Make sure you don't get the LMT SOP mod. This one is the VL Tor E mod stock. Now this thing actually has better ergo but worse recoil control than the MFT bus. So if recoil is all you care about, then maybe slap on the MFT bus. But this thing all round is a really good stock. Now this entire RPK setup will set you back about 110k. That's including the gun. Now obviously if you can't buy the muzzle brake, it's going to be slightly more, and obviously you don't have to use the scope, so you could save money there. But this is a really good gun for 110k, guys. I would really stress to you how amazing the RPK can really be, especially with the price of BT at the moment, and how readily available that round actually really is. Just for a quick comparison, I thought I'd throw in a mid-tier spray down to show you. This is with BS, by the way, which actually has increased recoil per round. Now, some of you won't be impressed with this recoil, but I wanted to point out that my recoil control and assault rifle skills are both around about 7, so they're actually really low as well. So this recoil is actually really manageable, especially if you're crouched or laying prone. This thing is an absolute laser beam. And you can see here that if I was crouched, it would actually be a lot better. Now with that mid-tier build, if you want to go one step further and just drop down that recoil just that tiny bit further, we can actually go ahead and extend the barrel. Now we can go from a 15-inch to a 22-inch if you can purchase this from Max Prep, or it's actually a really good deal. Once again, using the PWS CQB, you lose a fair bit of ergo doing this, so I would recommend actually topping up this build right here with something like the Fortis shift grip on the front, or maybe another grip here that gives you the ergo that you lost by extending the barrel. Now this is actually a really clean build, and the Fortis shift grip is actually incredibly good. Let's get straight into the lowest recoil. Extending the barrel to the 22-inch, we are going to be putting the PWS CQB once again. And for the foregrip choice, we are going to be going ahead and putting the Zenit RK2 on the front of this. However, I wouldn't recommend it due to the loss of ergonomics. Something like a Fortis shift might be a better option. For the pistol grip, we are going to be using the Zenit RK3 as it has the best ergonomics. For the stock, we'll be using the Magpul MOE. I just wanted to point out though, once again, you can use any of the colored variants as they can actually sometimes save you a bit of money, and just putting the butt pad on the end of that. Now something like the green one actually might be a good option. Sometimes ones like the FDE are cheaper on the flea, so shop around and see if you can find the best value here if you can't purchase them directly from the traders. And we will actually be changing the charging handle to the Zenit RP1 as it gives you 1 additional ergo, because you disgusting metafiends need that 1 extra ergo. Now as for suppressors, I wouldn't consider suppressing this build because once you put a drum mag on this thing, the ergo is quite horrible. But if you had a choice between the Hexagon AK-74 or the TPG-A, I would always recommend going for the TPG-A as it actually has better recoil control, whereas the Hexagon is slightly lighter. So maybe that's something you want to think about when you're going for the ergonomics of the gun. Now this build's going to set you up about 160 to 170,000 rubles, which seems like a lot, but that's including the gun and with something like the suppressor if that's what we wanted to do. Now obviously you can get it for a little bit cheaper if you go compensated. That's actually incredibly good value for the gun that this actually is. And if you think about some of the other meta guns, so let's have a quick look at that best in slot gun here. And I just wanted to point out the comparison between the two on the Fortis on the left hand side and the Zenit RK2 on the right hand side. Just have a look at the difference in ADS time, and the recoil isn't that much worse. So this is something you need to consider when thinking about something like extending the barrel. That ergo is actually really important. Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this build guide and want to see more of these, let me know in the comments down below what gun you'd like to see next. I am going to be working on some ammo testing guides in the future, so if you want to see those, thank you so much for watching to the very end, and as always, we'll see you on the next one.